A crowded campus full of busy students. A normal day inside America's educational system. But what can't be seen so easily is a plague infecting America's classroom. One so feared and misunderstood that most people avoid the topic altogether.
I can't talk about it right now.
No, I don't want to talk about it.
I don't want to talk about it.
I'm not talking about it.
Stop! It's time to start talking. In the United States, the third leading cause of death among teenagers is suicide. Misinformation abounds when it comes to this controversial topic. Major media outlets tend to focus only on high-profile cases that grab headlines and sell sound bites. But the scourge of suicide is as old as history itself. Yet beyond the emotional first reaction to the topic of suicide, there are actionable steps which can be taken to recognize and prevent it. Suicidal thoughts almost always begin with depression. Present in over 90% of individuals who attempt suicide, depression is defined as a debilitating mood, attitude, or feeling of hopelessness, which becomes a person's reason for neglecting the most important issues of life.
Depression is a generic term used in psychology, but it's also used just in describing people's emotional state. If you're not happy, you're generally sad. Sadness leads to depression.
There's a difference between clinical depression, which is a whole separate entity, and just feeling bad or sad or depressed.
My son, Colin, was basically like every other teenager. He attended Mount St. Joe High School, and for all 4 years he played soccer and he played lacrosse. His senior year he was actually co-captain of the lacrosse team, and he was like every other quote-unquote normal teenager that we knew. At the end of his senior year, he had decided to attend St. Mary's College in Southern Maryland, and everybody was very excited. He was going to go down there and he was going to play lacrosse. He completed the junior spring semester at St. Mary's, and there was a Sunday in June that we were supposed to take him down to Quantico to start this program for the Officers Training Candidate School, I believe it's called. And the Friday before we were supposed to take him down there, Colin came to us and sat in the living room, and I can still picture it perfect. He said, "I got to talk to you guys." And he said, there's something wrong with me. He says, "I'm different from my friends."
It's no coincidence that thoughts of suicide among young people begin in the mid-teenage years, a time when some begin to experiment with alcohol and drugs.
Oftentimes when people deal with depression, they have to seek a way to console their pain, whether it be physical, spiritual, emotional, psychologically. They can be affected with just tremendous pain. And so oftentimes people would turn to some sort of stimulus.
On his own, at some point in time that spring of his junior year, Colin had gone to the counseling center at St. Mary's College. They basically told him, don't drink so much.
Alcoholism, drug use, risk-taking behaviors are all kind of efforts by a person to handle the agitation, the uncomfortableness, the sense of being different on the inside. You know, isolation, I think, is key. This idea of having connection with somebody else or a bond with somebody else is so important, because it means that I'm not in this alone. Someone's in this with me.
By Monday morning, I was calling people, and we actually got an appointment very quickly for Colin to see a psychologist and a psychiatrist at Shepherd Pratt. So this psychiatrist is telling us these situational things were what had started Colin's depression. And his words were, "This is easily treated with counseling and medication."
Misuse of mood-altering drugs, even legal ones, prescribed by medical professionals, often contribute to the problem.
Well, I would hope that teenagers are not on antidepressants. I'm very slow to see that happen. When that happens, then the teenager's in trouble.
So for basically 1 solid year, Colin saw the psychologist and the psychiatrist at Shepherd Pratt. You could see when he first started taking it as they were building the medication up over the first probably 6 to 8 weeks or whatever. He kept saying he was feeling better. They had put him on something, some Ambien to sleep, and they had him on Effexor. Unbeknownst to us, somewhere mid-fall, he just stopped going to class.
Any medication should be used with caution. When it comes to depression, drugs can sometimes mask symptoms, allowing root causes to go untreated.
As a mom, I would call whenever I thought something was feeling different with my son, and usually it was looking different, going in the wrong direction. I would call either the psychiatrist or the psychologist and tell them what I saw, how he was behaving, and the words I always used were, "This is not my son."
The warning signs of depression are well known. Withdrawal from family and friends, disinterest in schoolwork and extracurricular activities, behavioral and disciplinary problems.
As parents, we were never given any kind of literature about depression. Certainly the word suicide never came up. Nothing was explained to us how to be supportive, understanding, what to expect, what to look for, what not to look for. Then there was one day where I had requested that we come in for another meeting, and Colin was just livid. He was angry before, which was why I called and asked if we could come in. And when he came into the meeting, he was absolutely irate.
If you were to think about what the word depression sounds like, it sounds like things are pressing down on you. You accrue so many things in your life that it can literally push down on you and create pressures that you can't, as a human, keep up with all of those things that you have in your life.
The psychologist sat there, never said a word. Meanwhile, I'm sitting in the corner writing my check, and the whole time I'm thinking, what am I writing this check for? You know, this man sat here and did nothing. And the only thing that psychologist said to us when we were leaving was, good luck. It was through a doctor that I work with at Northwest Hospital who told me about a neuropsychologist out at Shepherd Pratt. Colin got in there for the first appointment, and the man was with him, the psychiatrist, neuropsychologist was with him for about an hour. Set up a follow-up appointment. Things were obviously getting difficult for Colin, and he didn't keep that second appointment. And then we made a third appointment, and I had told Colin I just wanted to go and sit out there in the waiting room. Colin never showed up for the third appointment. Suddenly on December 10th of 2006, it was a Sunday morning, and I'll never forget, he had a hard time. He was having a hard time waking up that morning, a hard time getting out of bed. And a couple times I went in, you know, tell him, come on, let's get up, let's get going. Colin stormed out of the house. I had gone to his place where he was supposed to be working, and he wasn't there. And so I drove home, and I thought maybe he was home and hadn't decided to go to work. And I was sitting there talking to my husband, and within probably about 10, 15 minutes of my being home, there was a knock on the door, and it was the detectives who had found Colin. And Colin had hung himself in Patapsco State Park. And so that's when the journey starts.
Faith is an important part of developing someone's personality, and definitely a foundation for establishing themselves in terms of a community.
God answers a sense of belonging on a spiritual level, which is on a deeply personal level, because I know that I'm always part of His family, so I belong.
The reason is because it helps you to see that there is more to your life than what you see. It helps a person to see beyond the material world and see a spiritual dimension, and also see that there is God, and God has a purpose for you, and God has a destiny for you.
Because God says that once we are children in His family, we are always children. Nothing can take us out of God's hands.
People who live in a healthy community And that means a healthy relationship with others where they actually feel loved and actually are able to give love, have a greater sense of confidence, no doubt. Because in that loving relationship, you can be honest with someone, and someone can be honest with you.
That's why youth groups are so important, by the way. That's why family is so important, cousins are so important. That's why teams are so important, or clubs are so important. Because I want to have somewhere where I belong, I fit in.
So I think one of the remedies for a person who's tempted with suicidal thoughts is to make a proactive effort to seek out hope through prayer, through a strengthening community, and also to be an instrument of hope by doing something for others.
So if I do something productive or constructive, and if I serve others, which has meaning attached to it, then I gain a sense of my humanness and who I am.
I get depressed, and my spiritual director told me one of the best solutions with your depression is to do something kind for somebody else who can't pay you back, like visiting the hospital, giving something to the poor, just being a friend to someone who is lonely. And I have to admit, at the end of that, I felt the remedy of living a hopeful life.
All right, I'm ready to talk.
All right, I'm ready. Let's talk.
Okay, let's talk about it.
It's been said that if life is a continual sorting through of stories, then growing up is deciding which stories are true and worthy of dedicating our lives. Thank you for watching. On behalf of everyone who made this film possible, we hope that we've provided actionable steps to prevent and recognize depression-related suicide.